Hi guys, welcome back to the Outlands YouTube channel. You join me as I'm preparing to do a much needed recovery ride on Zwift. The hat and jumper will not last long. Today's video is all about the Muckle Yin points race and how 4 Cat C managed to help win the overall event in a B team category, all down to tactics and a great DS. Let's get into it. So you join us back with the footage from the race. This is the sum total of the footage I got, as I was having iPad issues, and it's a bit of a shame as I crossed the line first, but you'll just have to believe me. So when we talk about this race, we're talking about the Muckle Yin, and it's a points race, which means it's not just the first person across the finish line. There's segments throughout the race, and there's 6 of them, which means 6 extra finish lines, and it's broken down like this. So we have 2 things. We have fastest through the sector, FTS, and that is somebody at any point during the race who crosses the start of the segment to the end of the segment in the fastest possible time. That's it. It could be 10 minutes after the leaders go through, it doesn't matter. You also have the fastest across the line, and that is the top 10 people to get across that line first during the race. So almost like a finish line, but there's 6 of them. So really, when you're thinking about tactics of the race, if you're not in the top 10, you're not getting any points for being 12th, so there's no point in being there. You may as well save yourself and just sprint and try and get the fastest through the segment. So when we were thinking about this, we designed our tactics around it. So when you look at that, the parkour and the points available, what we decided to do is send 2 riders up the road to try and get as many first across the line points as possible. Inevitably, if you're going in that front group, you're going at quite a pace anyway, you're racing each other, so you are probably going to pick up some fastest through the sector points anyway. And then we had 3 lads who we decided that they would just literally roll out the pen, roll around, miss the first segment, and then start battling for the segments after that. Skip the Sker north and south as well, so just roll up those hills, just save their energy. So then that leaves them 3 segments to really hit out on. And then we had Dan Stevenson, our weight weenie at 59 kilograms. We set him up to do the big climb. So here we've got our grimper, our climber. Dan Stevenson, just mentioned him. He was there to get the fastest through the sector up the Sker. So he came into his own later, and you'll see that in the results. Then we've got our fastest through the sector sprinters. So as I said, they were going to roll through the start. They're going to roll up the 2 climbs and then hit all the other segments just as fast as they can. And I have to say, when I'd finished, which I'll come back to later, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to them battling each other for the fastest times. And then our rulers, our all-rounders, we planned it to be myself and Ash. So this is Ash's first race. He was on a watt bike in a gym. I understand he was in flip-flops or trainers or something like that. So his fitness is definitely there. But his racecraft is new to him, so he doesn't know things like there's drafting in Zwift. Now, one of the important members of the team who needs a special shout out is our very own director sportif, Spooner. He was the most calm person throughout the whole thing, chilled, but I'll come back to some of the things he was saying later on. They were absolutely fantastic. So just a quick reminder of the points again. So remember, fastest through sector is worth 20 points. First across the line is worth 10 points, and then that reduces for the next ones. Let's go through the segments with our results one at a time. So I mentioned the champion sprint earlier, went off like an absolute rocket. I think what we decided after talking some of the other races that happened as well, where we had people in other races, that happened in every single race, and we think it's basically the people who thought they weren't going to get over the hill climb, just hitting it, using up all their matches in one go to get at least some points. Completely caught us all out, but I still managed to recover to get 7th across the line, which got me 3 points. But because I was chasing on from such a fast start, I actually managed to get fourth across the line for the champion sprint. I was the only one who scored there. However, Dan and Ash did make it across, so we did get into the bunch to get towards the next one, which was the breakaway bray. Now, before the breakaway bray, there's a little hill called the corkscrew. There's nothing on it, but it just broke up there, and I ended up on the wrong side of the split. So did Dan Stevenson. I think Ash dropped out at that point as well. Not dropped out of the race, but dropped back from that group as well. So at that point, we had nobody in the top 10, and it was looking a bit dodgy. Fortunately, as we got to the breakaway bray, my sprint to get through there actually closed the gap between the second group and the first group. So 6th place for the first across the line. I actually got fastest through the sector there, and just because I was closing that gap, so that was a happy coincidence. Now then, our team of 3 who cruised from the start line, they crossed the line a couple of minutes later, and what you can see there is they just, even without that kind of group dynamics that I was benefiting from, they managed to get some really handy points on the board there. I think that's about 3rd and 7th place. So brilliant result for the team there, and exactly what we planned. We then got to the big climb of the day, which is where my panic was setting in. If from my point of view, I was with the front group, but I'm one of the heavier riders, so I didn't know if I'd get up here, but it's a 3-minute climb. And what I'd noticed was you get power-ups as you're going. So they benefit you in different ways, like reduce your weight temporarily, reduce your aerodynamic drag temporarily. And the one that I got, the one that you got before this, was actually a bulldozer, which basically made the gravel smoother, so less rolling resistance. And so I held on to that, but I noticed loads of people using it in the run-up. I had no idea why. So I managed to hold on to that, and as we went up, I pressed it about halfway up the climb, hit out, and then there's a little softening of the climb, so it goes quite steep. And I think as that softening happened, some of the lads with me kind of used that as a break, whereas I kept going. I got a gap, and I managed to hold that gap to the top. So as you can see, I got both fastest through the sector and the first across the line, which is an absolute bonus. Then we had the breakaway bray again, but in the reverse direction. So this is where Ash got into a stride, having, he's hoping to be with the front group, and then didn't happen. And then kind of worked out what the tactics were and how this worked, listening to the Discord chat and Spooner DSing for us. And we got some excellent points going across there for the fastest through the sector.
Paddy got his all-time best 1-minute power, and actually with working away, he's not actually cycled since the team time trials, so that's some effort.
Final 2 segments. So the Sker South, I mentioned earlier, is a lot shorter. This is where Daniel Stevenson, our DS, saved all his matches for, and he got across there first. In terms of the fastest through the section time, I got 3rd for the fastest through the sector, and then the guy and 2nd place across the line, the guy who won it was a Belgian. He also got the 2nd fastest through section. So he was fastest up until Dan came along later on and pipped him. Well, I say pipped him, which brings us round to the Clyde kicker. I'd saved on the Sker South the feather, and it worked out brilliantly. I was the only person, as far as I could see, with a useful power up for that segment, and I managed to get away from all the people I was with. And there was one guy who'd hit out, the Belgian, who went over the Sker South first on his own. He was left, but basically by the top of that climb, I'd caught up with him. At that point, it was us 2 in the lead. From there, there's about a mile left, and it's kind of rolling. I was starting to get a serious cramp in my quads, so I couldn't stand up to sprint anymore. I was sitting down from that point onwards. But I had Spooner in my ear the whole way, just saying, come on, you just need to keep going. You've got a gap. Don't forget they're hurting as well. So I did get caught by one lad who then ended up on the front. So I managed to grab his wheel for a little bit, and I jumped him. I think he was expecting the sprint to go right at the end, but I managed to jump a little bit early. And so I had a gap and an aero boost. I used both of those in the final sprint, and carried some speed. But he got onto my wheel, but thank goodness, Spooner on the DSing kind of said to me, he's dropped his power. So he just basically sat on my wheel and crossed the line behind me rather than kind of coming past me. So I finished that first. So going back to the Clyde kicker, What you'll see is the boys did good. I was just listening to the chat as I was cooling down and kind of giving encouragement, and I was just listening to the boys scheming their way into how they were going to achieve the fastest through the section time. And basically, we decided the best thing to do was just to roll to it, build up some speed just before it, and then race up this segment and race each other basically. So Dan Jackson there got the fastest time through the segment. I think he hit 1,000 watts for 15 seconds, which is kind of a massive PB. You can see the other boys there getting across the line. All 6 of us in the top 10. So absolutely smashed that. Entertainingly for me, as I was no longer in pain as I was cooling down, the 4 boys there who've kind of crossed the line, you can see how close they all were. Basically just had their own race from then to the end, just for a bit of inter-club glory, and it was extremely entertaining, as I wasn't in pain anymore. So that was nice. So now if we look finally at the total results, and on the right hand side you can see the total that each of us contributed to the team. But the most important thing I'd say there is this is a B race, and there was 4 Cat Cs in that, and look how many points they contributed to this. Absolutely blitzed it for us. And then if we now look at the final league table, you can see where we came there, and I think we did absolutely fantastic to tactics and deploying the tactics, with coaxing through by our DS. It was just one of the best conversations I've ever listened to on a Discord channel during a race. It was entertaining, committed, and full of banter. So I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, chuck them in the comments. If you've got any ideas on future content, obviously it'd be great to hear. We're going to spread out from Zwift and see what else we can get involved in with YouTube channel as we grow this. So yeah, we'd love your interactions, love your comments, good or bad. I'll just hide the bad ones.